What is going on, y'all? Welcome back to 8 Cubes. I'm KMBest. He's Lamby series. We discuss the 8 most important topics in Marvel Snap. We're going to start with 34 card Monte, the winner of the Golden Gauntlet. For those who are unaware, 34 card Monte is the Agamotto Arishem Thanos list that actually is mostly built around the fact that Thanos starts in your hand, giving you a guaranteed Hulk, basically, to play on turn 5 with that extra Arishem energy. That is a very powerful interaction, as weird as it may sound, because not a lot of people are talking about how good the Hulk is, but it turns out if it starts in your opening hand at no cost, and you get extra energy to play it, the Hulk is pretty good. So what is your read on 34 card Monte, Lamby?
Actually, I have a lot to say about this deck. Like, firstly, I'm gonna start by saying I actually like this deck a lot. Okay, but for the start, I just want to say that I don't think a lot of people actually notice it enough that the Thanos in your hand is just strictly a free card. Like, if you
Yeah.
just bother noticing, you play the 34 card deck, then you swap to a normal deck, you realize that the normal deck has one less card in your hand. I mean, it's very obvious, but some people we don't. It's not like something that you notice off the bat for some people, I would say. So yeah, you get a free, literally free 6/12 in your hand, which could be a 5/12. Which is very relevant, by the way. You can play it on turn 5, on turn 4, by the way, because it's an Arishem deck if you played the green stone first. So that's kind of important. Another thing I feel like this deck does is it gives you a lot of snap conditions per se, because the deck literally is all bombs, right? There's like Winds of Watom is a good card, Bolts of Baltic is a good card. Obviously Arishem giving you extra mana, letting you play Galacta on turn 3 is a very good thing. So this deck has quite a lot of snap conditions, but then obviously on the downside, it's obviously a 34 card deck. So there's some natural inconsistencies to it. But I think if you actually tried playing like 10 games of this and 10 games of just pure Arishem, you kind of notice that this deck actually is a little bit more consistent. And I think it's something that's very, very relevant, and why this deck is actually a bit more popular and better than the normal Arishem lists.
Yeah, it's purely the Thanos thing, right? Like,
Yeah,
the
it's purely
Agamotto
the
helps
Thanos.
because the Agamotto is like a soft Thanos, where like if you draw the spell that draws him, or if you draw him, you have a really good turn 4 play, right? Like, regardless, like it's like a soft version of the Thanos starting in your hand, where it's just like, oh, I get to play a really big guy for 5 energy on turn 4. But at the same time, a lot of like your best games are like Galacta on 3, Agamotto on 4, Thanos on 5, 2 cards on 6. And what that means is basically a lot of the time, if your opponent is outstatting you in those situations, which is not impossible, let's say they play the card Cassandra Nova, they have successfully outstatted you, right? Like they have done that. But even like a Sauron deck just curving out 3/10, 4/10, Red Skull, if they're matching or outstatting you, they're usually just going to have a better turn 6 than you are. And so that's ultimately, if there is a major weakness to this deck, it is like consistent point outputs of a very high level. That's the kind of thing that this deck is not able to deal with very well. What I find most interesting is the massive reaction as if this is like a guaranteed top elite deck forever now, and not just like, oh, it's week 1. The good Arishem deck that didn't have to do a lot of optimizing is going up against a bunch of decks that need to be optimized, right? Like that's more what's happening to my mind with this 34 card Monte deck. It's not like it's a bad deck. I think it's a quite good deck. But do I think it's the best deck in the game? No. And I think it also will get worse the more optimized things become. Because the way this deck works is the more it has to respond to you, the worse it is. If you're playing Mr. Negative into this, they're not going to get a Mobius. It's just not going to happen, and you're going to have more points than them. The more your deck demands an answer, the less this deck is capable of being a good deck. But the more your deck is answers, the better this deck is at scamming your answers. Right now, the metagame is new. There's a lot of people playing answer decks, and this deck gets to go over the top of a lot of dinky mid-range decks. That's not a permanent state of affairs. So for anyone worried about this list at being like a meta tyrant, first of all, put Cassandra Nova in your dinky mid-range decks and you're probably making it favored. Second of all, even outside of that, just play something that isn't a dinky mid-range deck.
Yeah, I mean, I actually want to like highlight one of the things you said, because I think it's super important, because this deck is really thriving right now because a lot of things are unoptimized.
Yeah.
It's like the thing about this deck is that you said one thing, which is this deck is good when there are when you are not trying to answer people, when you're just trying to do your thing, right? Because this deck cannot answer anything. It's a 34 card deck, and then you try and run tech in, which is not meant to be. It doesn't do very well. Honestly, given a choice, I would run 0 tech in this deck and just run all stats, because that's what this deck really does. But like, because 34 cards, right? You wouldn't draw the Enchantress on queue, you wouldn't draw the Shang on queue. Like, if you do, it's kind of like you got lucky. So I feel like this deck is best right now because it's just a bunch of stats that can be placed onto the board, and your opponent's decks are kind of like a bit unoptimized to deal with that right now. But I honestly think it's definitely not the best deck in the game. It's just a pile of cards, a pile of good cards that does its own thing, but eventually it's actually not that difficult to outstat this. Like, I'm just thinking off the top of my head right now, like if the bullseye deck draws properly, it for sure wins this deck. If the, like you said, Sauron just plays 10s, it also for sure wins this deck. Heck, even the classic bounce that Derek won with like 2 weeks ago also probably just wins this deck, right? So it's like this deck is just good because like it doesn't have to answer anything right now. But when it finally reaches that point where people are actually playing decks with a bit more output, this deck is just gonna like fade a bit.
Yeah. And I think for that reason, my big thing I would like people to take away from this podcast is relax. It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Arishem is not back in force. This is the best Arishem deck, largely because of Thanos just being in your hand. But this is still an Arishem deck and comes attendant with all of those weaknesses. Put Cassandra Nova in your dinky mid-range deck, you're going to be fine, and then play something that goes over the top of it, you're also going to be fine. Moving on to Seaball Merc. All of the Seaball Merc decks missed top 8, but there were multiple in the top 16, which was the actual top cut of the tournament. There was a lot of Seaball Merc running around. What I find most interesting is when we talk about the metagame being unoptimized and that giving Arishem advantages, because it doesn't really have to do a lot of optimization, it's just let's jam some cards in here. This is kind of what we mean. This is the largest unoptimized sector of the metagame, is the Cannonball Mercury, because obviously Mercury just came out. So what we saw in Golden Gauntlet were people playing Thena Professor X Cannonball Mercury. We saw people playing Galacta Gwenpool and good stuff with Elsa Bloodstone Cannonball Mercury. We saw people playing the deck I hit rank 1 with, the Ica Wiccan Cannonball Mercury. Oh god, I keep calling him Ica. Ica. The Eco Wiccan Cannonball Mercury. There are a lot of different builds of this combo. I'm very confident something involving these cards is very good, but I'm not at all confident what the specific 12 cards should be. Especially the Wiccan build, it's just such a brute force application of the concept. I do think you could probably play the Wiccan build and just put a Cassandra Nova in and like just kind of clean up right now. But I think you could do that with any of these builds. It's not really like indicative of anything. It's just a very powerful thing to be doing to have your Cannonball Mercury and then a Fenris Wolf package that locks into the Cannonball Mercury. So if you don't have priority on the final turn of the game, you blow up their biggest thing and then you copy their biggest thing. That's just a powerful, powerful game plan that puts these decks sort of at the top of every mid-range matchup. Whenever you're playing against someone playing fair, it's very hard to play fair against your biggest thing goes away and then I get a copy of it. It's like you have a one-sided guaranteed to hit the right thing leader almost, an absolute hammer. So what do you think about the different builds? And then zoom out, general metagame positioning of Cannonball Mercury decks.
So I actually spent quite a bit of time with this, like trying to build Cannonball Mercury in the last like 24 hours, because I was quite fascinated with the fact that like just one Mercury inclusion allows you to have such a powerful final turn, right? But it makes a lot of sense. I think the most powerful thing you can do is just like across 6 turns you set up the 3 cards, right? You set up the Mercury, the Wolf, the Fenris Wolf, and then the Cannonball. That's probably the biggest swing you got. But I've experimented with Wiccan builds and non-Wiccan builds. I feel like this deck, at the end of the day, it's just a mid-range deck that really wants to always be ahead. You know, like you want to put a lot of points on the board. You want to like never not spend all your energy, because like if spending all your energy means you're playing a lot of stats. So I kind of think the Wiccan build is the best way to go about it. Like I'm pretty sure you can do like Wiccan plus like Prof X also, or Wiccan with, I don't know, maybe Hope Summers or whatever. But I feel like you definitely want to lean into the Wiccan. Because like what you can really do with the Wiccan is so insane, right? Like you can go, let's just say you set up the Fenris Wolf and the Mercury, then you go Wiccan. Then on the final turn you have like 8 energy, right? You can go Seaball, blow something up, revive it with the Wolf, and then you have 3 spare energy to go Gladiator or Speed, or that's just GG, man. There's like so much stuff to do. And of course, 5 plus 3 also means 5 plus Cassandra Nova right now, which also farms the living daylights out of the Arishem deck. So I definitely think, based on my testing so far, I don't know the exact 12 because I've been rotating cards like crazy, but I do know I want to lean very heavily into the weekend portion because it's just good ways to spend all your energy and upward a lot of points if you lean into weekend. And this that kind of just very easily leans into weekend, right? Quicksilver, your tools are just all the best in slot tools most of the time. And then your trees are just good trees, and then you go from there. Turn 4 is weekend, so I think this deck honestly, I think this deck after playing it a bit, I find it a little bit boring because you just do the same thing every game. But like, it's strong. It's strong. That's all I can say.
I also wanted to shout out there was one archetype of Cannonball Mercury that I did miss, and that is the Super Giant variant of Cannonball Mercury, which Evazord played into the top 16. I believe that is something that Stefan's been messing around with as well. Super Giant's a really interesting card now. There was a separate Super Giant deck with Ronin in it that I thought was just really, really cool, really well designed, and a very smart thing to do in a metagame full of Merlin. I was impressed by that as well. So shout out to Rabbit Sweet who brought that. No Cannonball Mercury though, but I do kind of wonder if you could try to get it in there. That's sort of what I mean, where it's like there's clearly something powerful here. There are like 5 different decks that could reasonably be the right thing to play, and everyone is split on which one is actually correct.
Yeah, just want to throw one interesting thing out there whereby when I was playing against because I'm now top 100 on ladder, right? When I was playing against
Look at
better
you.
players, yeah. When I was playing against better players, I realized like everyone expects the weekend on 4, but if you've got like Kate Bishop or Merlin active on the board, a lot of the time what I found more successful was I went like 3+1 on turn 4 and then 4+1 on turn 5 instead. Because like everyone expects you to play weekend on 4, right? So like if you play disruption on turn 4 instead and then you curve into weekend on 5, it kind of like messes with their head a bit. It's just something that I realized, but yeah. It's just a thing.
There were 4 Thanoses in the top 8 of Golden Gauntlet 1. There were 4 Thanoses in the top 8 of Golden Gauntlet 2. Now, I realize I'm being a YouTuber, clickbaiter, several question marks when I say it like that, because in the top 8 of Golden Gauntlet 2, there was a normal Thanos, an ongoing Thanos, and then 2 34-card Monte, which, if we're being honest, are not Thanos decks. Like, we can be honest. Those are not Thanos decks. It's not the same thing. Stop it. But it does sort of beg the question of, is this, like, there's a mechanic in Magic the Gathering called Companion. And it was where they let you just have a card start outside your hand, but it was like effectively a card you could add to your hand at any time, right? This mechanic was so broken, even though they put a bunch of deck building restrictions on it, that it was eventually nerfed. They added a 3 energy tax to the mechanic. They had to change the entire mechanic because it was just that broken to have the extra free card in your hand. Thanos is the companion of Marvel Snap, and we see the Arishem decks using him almost purely for that. Like, the stones, who cares? They exist. They discount your Mockingbird. You're playing it for the Thanos in your hand. We're playing Hulk that always starts in your hand, but starts in your hand for free. That's what Thanos is doing. What I want to dial in on is that just fundamentally too strong of a thing to have any card do in this game? Because we are looking at effectively Hulk. This is a Hulk that you just get in your hand for free. It comes with a cost. It comes with some benefits. I gotta wonder, like, if there was just straight up companion Hulk in this game, would Arishem rather play that than Thanos? Because I kind of think the answer is yes.
Yeah, I actually think the answer is yes, because when I played a lot of this 34-card Monte deck myself, and I realized you really don't. If you have other things to do, you're actually extremely not interested in playing the stones on the board. Like you don't really need to. Like the only stone you actually really care to play. It's weird to say, but if you draw Mind Stone after turn 1, honestly, I don't even think I really want to play because there's like so many 2s and then the 4s to play, right? Like you only really want to play the green stone because Thanos comes down on 4. Right, if you play the green stone, that's actually like the main point of the deck. To play the big guys earlier than on schedule because of Arishem's like energy, like giving you an extra energy. But yeah, no, I think the thing about Thanos is very interesting right now. Like it aids the Arishem deck so much. That's one. But of course, if we revert it, because I heard it somewhere, if you revert it back to whereby you always do the quicks, you turn the Thanos back into a Quicksilver, I think it's gonna be mega unplayable. Like the difference is huge, right? So what's the fine line? I'm not sure. But I think one thing I want to super highlight from GG1 and Golden Gauntlet 1 and Golden Gauntlet 2, which made Thanos' life honestly a little bit easier, which I think I have no idea why no one has talked about this, but it's so obvious. The amount of Mobius is just so low right now, like in GG2 compared to GG1. And Thanos benefits so much from that because of the Mockingbird. It's the best Mockingbird deck, right? So even if you're actually trying to just play pure Thanos on ladder or whenever, you will find your life a lot easier right now, whether you realize it or not, because you don't get hit by Mobius as often. So like your normal Thanos is a smaller deck than the Arishem deck, so you naturally draw your Mockingbird more consistently. And your Mockingbird is almost always free because no one's really playing Mobius right now. So I think that's something to really consider. Like your Mockingbird is like it's free. She's a Mockingbird.
I wanted to really shout out the player who played ongoing Thanos, because I'm like the ongoing Thanos guy. Like at a certain point, that was just like, what's KM gonna say is the best deck this week? It's gonna be ongoing Thanos, and I was very into it. And then it started getting stat checked by all sorts of random garbage. Like then you started getting stat checked by like Cerebro or whatever. And we'll talk about Cerebro in a little bit. So to take a deck like ongoing Thanos to the top 8 of the tournament, I found that really impressive, because honestly, I did feel like you just get stat checked by a lot of legitimately like not good stuff right now. So I did want to shout that out. It was also ongoing Thanos without Kyera, which ended up being the downfall of it as soon as a Killmonger was deployed. The matchup against Killmonger is still absolutely atrocious. So I do think that maybe there's something in ongoing Thanos, but maybe that was just a really good run. I can't tell. I want to believe, though. I definitely want to believe. There were 2 Cerebro 2 decks in the top 16. They unfortunately both lost in the round of 16, but that is still like a pretty decent portion of the metagame from a deck that did not exist prior to like a week ago. So I guess it's time to talk about like Cerebro 2 as a legitimate contender. And I have sort of been on this boat of like, I think Cerebro 2 is a legitimate deck. I think it is good. I think it is straightforward. And I think it is legitimately powerful, despite the fact that it has all these potential weaknesses in a game, especially in battle mode, where those bad games can be mitigated and the good ones can be sort of doubled down on. I think Cerebro has become like an actually underrated deck. I think people were like, wow, this is really strong for like 3 days. And then they were like, wow, this is not actually all that good. Everyone was freaking out for no reason. And I think that I'm actually closer to the first camp, where like, no, this is just a really strong thing to do. You are outputting a massive amount of points. And yes, you have some location losses, which is good. But in a battle mode where you can mitigate the impact of location variance, I genuinely think Cerebro is just like a good deck.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so my stance hasn't changed that I don't like Cerebro for very obvious reasons, which you can check out in the previous video on A-Cubes. But like today, I'm actually going to talk about something a bit different, which is I actually think Cerebro, because I want to say something positive about Cerebro as well, which is firstly, yes, it's very Cerebro 2 stat checks a lot of decks very well, right? And it's kind of very obvious you got stat checked because it's very clear everyone can count the power. So it's not gonna be a deck that like gains you a massive amount of cubes. In fact, like Cerebro 2 is actually just a grinder deck. Like you really need to grind it out because no one is gonna give you extra cubes. I'm like decently close to one of the like prominent Cerebro players in general, like Agi. He's from my Discord. He's not really a Cerebro 2 specific player, but he told me something with Cerebro which was really interesting, which is if you want to play Cerebro, I think the most important thing, he told me the most important thing about playing Cerebro is that you really need to, every time you stay for a 2-cuber that it's just not meant to be, it's considered a misplay, because Cerebro is a deck that's just so clear cut. Like, if you know you are not gonna be able to win this, you probably will know very early on that you cannot win this. Because how do you know if you can win this? For example, for Cerebro 2, right? You know you've got the Goose to protect yourself from the edge, then you have the Mystique and the Bro in your hand. You know you're gonna win that. But then like if you don't have that and someone snaps you on a weird location, you kinda have to leave. So I feel like the thing about Cerebro is that you really need to know not when to not waste cubes, because you are also not gonna be getting a lot of cubes from them with your nut hands, you know. So if you're not gonna get a lot of cubes from them with your nut hands, because it's so obvious. So you need to know how to not waste cubes when you don't have the nut hands or the bad locations. And I think that was really smart of him to say. So I think that's kind of something I want to highlight.
Definitely worth highlighting. This one is just like me clapping back at my imaginary haters. Sauron made the top 8 of the Golden Gauntlet, and I have been telling people for extended periods of time that I genuinely believe Sauron is an underrated deck. That it's mostly underrated because top players think it's boring and they don't really want to play it. And
It is boring.
Yeah, okay. But like, it's still a good, strong deck. And top 8, Golden Gauntlet 2, off of what I can only imagine to be a very low play rate. I don't think a lot of people rocked Sauron to this tournament, right? And that is indicative of a couple of things. First, this is a deck that has a very high floor. I have always sort of maintained that this is kind of the deck to play if you're like rank 70 trying to hit infinite. Like if that is something like there's a large amount of skill diff in Marvel Snap, but I'm probably not going to play Sauron all that differently from you. I might make a couple of different decisions. I might prioritize a couple of different things. But on the whole, we're going to do fairly similar stuff, which means you playing Sauron in rank 70 is almost like if I were playing your account, because we're doing kind of the same things. We're not really making different choices a lot of the time. It doesn't really allow you to make very many different choices. And that means that you're basically smurfing if you're playing Sauron right now. That has always been my contention for why it's better than people think, which is the skill ceiling or the skill floor is so high. Like you are so, just by picking up the deck, you're going to be pretty decently good at the deck, whereas other decks require so much more of you. I kind of think that it is just always going to be a better choice than people give it credit for climbing up those ranks.
Yeah, I actually have a lot of good things to say about this style of deck. Like not specifically Sauron, but just more like play very honest amount of big points and win, because Marvel Snap is about having more points than your opponent. Like I have a good thing to say about this kind of deck. So firstly, because I want to agree with KM that yeah, this kind of deck, the difference between a very good player and a new player playing this deck is very minimal. Like after about like a few games, everyone will play the deck almost the same way to a certain extent. So it's good. It's good. It's a good way to like bridge the gap between ranks in a sense. Like if you don't want to be like super try hardy and you want to like just get to infinite, this deck is perfect. Or also like if you want to like do two things at one time, you want to watch Netflix on one screen and play the game and still climb. I do that, by the way. So I understand the need for a deck that is a bit more simple as well. But at the same time, I think in a tournament setting, this kind of deck also, there's no shame in a sense, because I feel like sometimes you just want a simple deck and then you focus on what, like at least for me, like I'm very good at snapping, right? So I can just play my simple deck, have like 99% chance that I wouldn't misplay because it's so simple, and just snap correctly and then like get the rounds out of the way. So I feel like there's merit to this kind of deck as well. So maybe on your off days, for even if you're a good player, you're just not feeling it, you just bring this deck, just snap well, and you might still win games. Actually, you will still win games, honestly.
I think the other thing about it is like tournaments are to some degree an exercise in endurance. So a deck that takes mental load off of you is valuable in that context. My thought process has always been if you have two decks that are basically the same and one of them's easier than the other, you're throwing if you don't play the easy one, especially in the context of a tournament that requires so much of you. New card coming out on Tuesday, the Ancient One, a 3/5 with an on reveal ability that adds Tau Mandala to your hand. Tau Mandala, a 3/0 skill that copies an ongoing onto the other cards at the location of that ongoing ability. So, a couple of things jump to mind with this. One is if I'm Wickening, I can copy a claw. That seems like a really cool thing to do, is have 3 claws. But mostly what jumps to me is I can do V-Hand 3 times. I have a V-Hand in a lane. I have 2 other things in a lane. I play this. I now have 3 V-Hands. That seems quite powerful, because what I'm looking for when I see Tau Mandala is I want a way to take the power that I'm going to get from Tau Mandala and distribute it across multiple locations. I don't want to just copy an Iron Man and be like, I'm really winning this location because I've got 3 Iron Men here. I want to win multiple locations because that's what Marvel Snap is about.
Yeah, so this card to me is I will definitely be experimenting with this card, because it's one of those cards whereby you're playing a 3/5, okay, fine, that gives you a 3/0. So this 3/0 effectively is telling you to go big, right? Like you look at this card, the effect is just literally telling you to go big. Like you want 3 V hands, triple claw, I don't know, triple blue, triple cerebral. No, I can't do cerebral. Cerebral 5, but like whatever. Triple something that scales is I think what you really want to do with this card, because it's quite a lot of effort investment into like playing this card and then the mandala as well. But I do think there will be a deck for this that abuses it the best. I'm not too sure what yet. But one thing I'm very curious about is that, because I asked KM about this before the thing and we both weren't very sure. I wonder if you guys know. Can an ongoing card have a second ongoing? Which is very interesting, right? Like, can an Iron Man be a claw? Can a claw also be an Iron Man? Because obviously if it's possible, then there's a lot more decks that you can build this into.
Yeah, I feel like the answer is no. And I think what this will do is overwrite, but I frankly do not know. Like that's what I'm worried about with this card is, does this card overwrite the text when it does its thing? Or does it just add the text? And that, like, if it's overwriting the text, that's not just lack of synergy with ongoings, that's lack of synergy with like Galacta, right? That means that you really only want to copy it onto honor reveals. It's a really like sort of mechanically like questionable card until we know how that works, right? My instinct is it'll overwrite because that's sort of what happens with Mystique. If it doesn't overwrite, then we're talking about a much stronger card, I think.
Yeah, this card has a bit of images of icon feel. Maybe there'll be a kind of Agamotto mishmash. I mean, what's an ongoing card you can play in Agamotto? I guess Claw makes a lot of sense, right? Like you would images of icon a Claw anyway. So I guess this is something that could go in there as well.
Wanted to devote a little bit of a section to the others, which are in this case Kale, Jennifer Kale, Hellion, and Nick Scratch, who there have been a lot of cards released recently, and several of them have made large metagame impacts. These are the ones that sort of flew under the radar in Series 4. And I think that there's probably pretty good reason for that, but also I think that at least a few of these cards are likely to be useful in the future. So what we're going to do here is we're each going to take one of these cards and we're going to make an argument for why it's useful. And yes, that means with 3 cards, one of them is going to be left alone, much like the starter Pokemon when you pick them. It will have to hang out with Professor Oak. I am going to take Jennifer Kale. I think Jennifer Kale, 2/2 activate, add an energy, is just like a solid card. There's not necessarily the perfect space for it, but a lot of that is because if you're looking to 2/2 energy sheet right now, there's stuff like Surge that might be a little bit better in the long run. I do think, though, that there's a world where this is a legitimately playable card. We're looking to like get a Sarah out on 4. Jennifer Kale helps us do that a lot. There are like major competitors, though, those being Surge in the 2-drop slot, and if you're looking to get a 5-on-4, I think Luna Snow is a lot better at doing that than Jennifer Kale is right now. That 6 power does make up for the fact that your opponent is also getting some energy, I think. And so we have massive competition for Jennifer Kale, but we're also in a metagame that clearly demonstrates that doing what she does is a powerful thing to do. So that's my argument for why Jennifer Kale is underrated, and I think is a legitimately compelling piece of digital cardboard here.
All right, before I get to my card, I also kind of want to just talk a bit about Jennifer Kale, because I'm so close to just doing this for the sake of doing it, because I love Infinity Ultron and I want to force that card to work. So I mean, obviously Luna Snow is the better card to enable Infinity Ultron, but Jennifer Kale, if you strictly draw her on turn 2, I think still decent. So but yeah, anyway, my card is that I want to talk about is Helion. The problem, okay, so the good thing about the thing about Helion is it's a 5/8, right? It says that you can move other cards to this location. The thing about Helion is that I think it's a good effect on a good body. What it does best is it allows you to redistribute power to lost locations. Because sometimes from lost locations, sorry. Because sometimes you start the game, you play cards in random locations. Then after about 2 turns, you realize that location is just impossible to win. I feel like Helion just lets you redistribute, which I think is a good thing. It's like one-sided cloak, which is good. It's a 5/8 as well. The problem is what's the best 5/8 in the game, right? We're not gonna be playing this 5/8 when the other 5/8 exists. I mean, it's Cannonball, guys. Also, the 5/7 is just better. Legion is just a better in general card still. So this card, like, I mean, I like the card. Just make it a 5/9. I'll force myself to play it. I like the card. So it's like I think it's close to being good, but it's a bit more situational than like obviously Cannonball and Legion, which is very flexible. So I mean, it's a mid card right now. Yeah, so I mean, I don't think there's much to say about the Bulbasaur, which is a Nicholas Scratch. It's Fortuna Bulbasaur, by the way.
It's always Bulbasaur. It's always Bulbasaur. It's 100% correct. Yes. I will say this. I will say this very, very specifically. I think Hellion is like objectively a good card. It's just
Yeah.
like it does objectively a powerful thing. And the reason it's a powerful card is because it is doing something that allows you to make sure you're getting 100% of your cards invested in the spots where you actually need them. Marvel Snap is a game where invalidating your opponent's investment is basically the entire strategy of the game. Oh, you invested 20 power here, I have 22. It doesn't matter how much I win by. What matters is that their 20 might as well not exist. Hellion allowing you to redistribute your investments, extremely just a baseline powerful thing to do. The one thing that's holding me back from him, you talked about the other 5/8. I'd like to talk about the 2/2 that goes with that 5/8 that says that Hellion doesn't work. Like, that part's bad. I think that's really the issue I have with Hellion right now. I would be playing him if it weren't for that, I think.
The one other thing about Hellion that I kind of want to mention is also I do think that there is like a deck with Hellion can exist now. It's such an Alioth card, by the way. Like, the thing about Alioth is that sometimes you need to Alioth here, but you're lacking in points because your opponent played well, right? But with Hellion, as long as you have priority, you are for sure going to be able to redistribute everything, max output in 2 locations, and then play the Alioth. So there is an Alioth deck out there for Hellion for sure. Let me know if you guys have one for me to try.
I feel the same way. Like, this is a card that I think people are overlooking because it's not the right time for it, but there will come a time where people are like, man, that's kind of a messed up thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah, it's for sure an Alioth card, man.
Speaking of potentially messed up things, it's time to talk about Merlin, who I think is pretty clearly the best 2-drop in the game, but he's the best 2-drop in the game by, in my opinion, less than unnerfed Sam Wilson and unnerfed Iron Patriot were, which is to say, I think he's closer to Kate Bishop than he is to either of them, or in their primes. I think he's better than them now, although I actually think Iron Patriot is kind of massively underrated right now. But what Merlin's really doing, I gotta tell you, I didn't see this coming. Merlin's best spell is Omniversal Presence. By a lot. I was excited about Polymorph, I was excited about the 2 energy. Having a 2/3 that generates 1/2 Scarlet Witches that don't take up board space, that's just good. It's just a good thing to have access to.
Yeah, KM's point actually is firstly, let's put it as the focal point, because basically what Merlin is it's like best in slot Tina in every deck. It's like every deck's Tina. It's very often if you play it on turn 2, right? Like, I think it's like literally like 66% of your games or something. It's a 2/9, which is mad, you know. It's a literal 2/9 that doesn't really take up board space because the spells cost 1 and change location. So it's kind of benefiting you as well. I've played a lot of decks that really abuse the Merlin mechanic really well, like the wolf decks where you can jump the wolf like an infinite amount of times and never fill up your board space. So my wolves are like 20 plus power on average. It's insane. But other than that, I think I agree. Omniversal Presence is literally one of the best cards that Merlin can generate because it is flexible, location changing. I mean, at the end of the day, I think Legion is still the more scammy card. But like, the thing about Merlin is that you have so many turns to see all these spells. You know, like, as long as if you play Merlin early, as long as you see the ramp spell before turn 6, you can get rid of a rock, clear up a space, you know. And I mean, it's Clock's like worst enemy for sure. And then of course the Polymorph sometimes does quite a bit of work, right? Like, obviously if you play Sentry, it's an insane Polymorph target on the Void and all that kind of thing. So I think Merlin's just a very flexible card, backed by the fact that Omniversal Presence is just insane with Merlin, you know. So I think this will be the best in slot 2 for a very long time. So the argument here, and the interesting thing which we discussed, was that KM thinks that this is he thinks that Sam Wilson pre-nerf was better than this.
Oh, yeah.
I actually think this is better than Sam Wilson personally. Like, I think this card's flexibility and ability for every deck to gain access to location control and ramp, I think these two to me is a very big deal.
It might be about as good as pre-nerf Sam Wilson in a generic deck, but I'll cop to that. But Sam Wilson it's
better in Thanos, yes.
It was never in a generic deck. That's the problem,
yeah,
right? Like, it was never like they're like, okay, yeah, if you're just like running Sam Wilson for the stats, yeah, Merlin's about as good, maybe a little bit better, but you're never running Sam Wilson for the stats. You're running Sam Wilson because it's 2 ongoing bodies and discounting your Mockingbird and doing a bunch of other ridiculous crap, right? Like, this is like it's just. True. Merlin is, as a generic card, probably about as good as Sam Wilson was. It's just that Sam Wilson, that was Sam Wilson's floor. Like, that's Sam Wilson's floor, and his ceiling was so much higher. I don't know. I if I had to like stack rank them, I think I would go Sam Wilson, Iron Patriot, Merlin, Kate Bishop, if we're all talking at peak of their powers. But in the current world, it's Merlin, then, in my opinion, Iron Patriot, Kate Bishop, Sam Wilson.
Yeah, this is where we are all living in Merlin's world of wizardry right now, for sure.
Yeah. All right, y'all. That's going to bring us to the end of the show. I've been KMBest. That's been KM Cat. That's been Lamby series, and he's going to take us out.
Thank you so much for being here, guys. Like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you guys and the cat in the next one. Bye-bye. The cat should always just appear randomly in every video.
I don't
it's
have
just perfect.
any control over